The story begins with a man who looks like a nurse named Sang-hun. Lately, Sang-hun has been quite repressed. His wife is pregnant, so he can't have sex. Coincidentally, he meets a beautiful, sexy woman. He thought it would take a lot of money to win her over, but the woman is far more proactive than he expected. Before he realizes what's going on, her words put Sang-hun in a difficult position. If he doesn't go home, he has to lie. But who can resist such temptation? Just as they sleep together, the woman suddenly gets up, saying her best friend's father has suddenly died and she needs to rush back to the city to help. It's the middle of the night. The guest house is deep in the countryside, and there's no way to call a ride-hailing service. Still smelling of alcohol, Sang-hun has no choice but to risk everything and drive his BMW X5 down the pitch-black mountain road. The woman sits in the passenger seat. To help keep Sang-hun awake, she starts kissing him passionately. That's clearly going to end badly. An unlucky pedestrian gets hit and flies 40 meters. Sang-hun immediately gets out to check, only to find that the pedestrian is surprisingly calm. Here's a little-known fact. In Korea, if you're responsible for a fatal hit-and-run, you'll go to prison. So when the woman suggests calling the police, Sang-hun refuses. Even if he turns himself in for a reduced sentence, media exposure would completely ruin his family and career. Racked with guilt, he blames the woman instead. As they argue, suddenly they spot another car in the distance. Sang-hun quickly drags the body away and hides it on the other side of the BMW X5. The driver of the Hyundai slows down and backs up to get a better look. "Hey bro, what happened? Did you hit someone?" Sang-hun is terrified and tries to explain, "Don't talk nonsense." Finally managing to send the nosy driver off, Sang-hun opens the X5's trunk and stuffs the body inside. His plan is to find a remote place and bury it. But just then, a shadow suddenly darts out from the side. It turns out there had been a witness the entire time who saw Sang-hun hit the person and hide the body. If Sang-hun lets him get away, he's doomed. With that thought, Sang-hun charges like a beast and tackles him to the ground. The woman is in shock. In just 10 minutes, Sang-hun has killed 2 people. Luckily, the BMW X5's trunk is big enough. Sang-hun steps on the gas and heads toward a scenic area called Chulsan. At this point, the unconscious witness wakes up and turns on the flashlight. Seeing the body next to him, he starts screaming in terror. Furious, Sang-hun grabs a golf club and starts beating the witness like mad. "Who told you to stay up in the middle of the night?" The witness tries to dodge and begs, "Please don't kill me. I swear I didn't see anything." Even a 3-year-old wouldn't believe that. Sang-hun thinks for a moment, then asks the witness for his bank account and transfers 10 million won as hush money. He then orders the witness to get out of the car. Sang-hun carried the body a few hundred meters away and dug a deep pit in a clearing. By doing so, the witness not only took the hush money but also became an accomplice in burying the body. Sang-hun drove the 2 of them back home. By the time they reached Seoul, it was already morning. He dropped the woman off and warned her not to contact him for the next few days. But it turned out the witness thought 10 million won wasn't enough. He wanted another 20 million. Left with no choice, Sang-hun transferred the money again. His account balance dropped to just 3 million won. He was completely broke and scraped his palm badly in the process, adding physical pain to financial misery. He was furious. To truly cover his tracks, he had to get the car repaired. The service center handed him a repair estimate, 4.8 million won. As a man once in business himself, Sang-hun felt even more miserable. With only some coins left in his pocket, he took a bumpy bus ride back to his clinic. What he didn't know was that just a few hundred meters away, the driver of the Hyundai from the night before had been secretly snapping photos of his every move. Back in his office, Sang-hun gritted his teeth and disinfected his wound with alcohol. Then he called the woman, asking her to cover the car repair cost for now. In Sang-hun's mind, spending some money to fix things quietly was the perfect ending. Could he really get away with it? Unfortunately, he was being way too optimistic. The witness returned like a ghost, showing up at his clinic again, clearly intending to blackmail him long-term. When Sang-hun heard he now wanted 30 million won, he was furious but didn't dare lose his temper. He held it in and politely asked for more time. After seeing the unwelcome guest off, Sang-hun exploded with rage and took it out on his office, turning into a one-man wrecking crew. When the repair shop finally called to say the car was ready, Sang-hun had to come up with a new lie. He claimed he'd hit a wild boar. The mechanic was confused and muttered something that caught Sang-hun completely off guard. The man suggested checking the garbage. Sang-hun rushed back to the trash bins and found a discarded memory card in a bag. The entire dashcam footage was on that card. He played the videos on his computer one by one. Finally, he spotted a key detail. He hadn't actually hit anyone. The person had fallen from above. Sang-hun quickly found the rest of the footage and zoomed in. The face of the person who threw the body. It was the witness. Feeling completely played, Sang-hun immediately called the woman to share the discovery. She calmly warned him, even if he didn't kill anyone, he still couldn't go to the police. He had been drunk driving. Plus, she helped bury the body too. But this time, Sang-hun thought clearly. He decided they should go to the police. At worst, he'd just pay a fine for drunk driving. Reporting a murderer might even earn him some leniency. The woman couldn't argue. She agreed to go with him to the station to back up his story. Sang-hun told her to get in the car, but she refused, claiming she was traumatized. Women are just troublesome, he thought, frustrated. Just as he tried to smooth things over with a few words, the woman suddenly turned hostile. He wanted nothing more than to strangle the heartless, manipulative fox on the spot. Just then, a man with a greasy, slicked-back hairstyle emerged from the shadows and slipped into the back seat. It was the witness. Turns out, the woman and the witness were working together. A classic romance scam. They partnered up to target wealthy, lustful middle-aged men. They giggled as they discussed how to dispose of Sang-hun, not realizing a pair of eyes was watching them closely from behind. The woman brought up her hometown, Mohamed. There was an abandoned construction site there. Perfect for burying a body. Fortunately, Korea isn't big. It was just about an hour's drive. They arrived at the site and began digging a deep pit. As the woman dug, she joked with the witness and mocked Sang-hun. That guy? He thought I actually liked him. He thought he was some kind of K-drama lead, but unexpectedly, Sang-hun regained consciousness from the drugged state. He quietly reached for the gear shift, hoping to make a stealthy escape. But when he heard the woman mocking him like trash, his rage exploded. Hearing the engine, the woman tried to run, but her legs gave out. She was crushed in an instant. Looking at her mangled body, Sang-hun finally felt a twisted sense of justice. Sang-hun got his outburst, but he forgot one thing. The witness was still in the pit. The witness may not have cared for the woman emotionally, but she was still his partner in crime. This was revenge time. The witness grabbed a shovel and, without mercy, struck Sang-hun down, butchering him into pieces. Sang-hun slumped over the car hood, lifeless. All of this stemmed from one woman. Her name was Yujia. 20 years ago, she was a notorious delinquent in school. Originally, the school had picked her for a promotional shoot, but the student council chose a prettier girl, Yenmei, instead. Enraged, Yujia asked a gangster upperclassman to teach Yenmei a lesson. The guy had just been released from prison and didn't want to go back, so he came up with an idea. She hired 3 thugs, had them wear masks, and abducted Yenmei, venting her fury in the cruelest way. 20 years passed. After cosmetic surgery and enhancements, Yujia had become even more seductive. She drove her Mini to Majayatan's #1 prison to pick up the man who had suggested that wicked plan long ago. The witness. Back then, Sang-hun had surrounded himself with talented people. Among them was a Chinese man nicknamed Brother Long. A tough guy from the Korean Chinese. The witness admired Long's ruthlessness. Before his release, he even left Long his phone number. Now free, the witness walked out of the prison gates, only to be greeted by the upgraded Yujia. Both of them were born con artists. They hit it off instantly. Yujia posed as a flirty cycling girl. Her figure and charm immediately caught the attention of a rich second-generation cyclist. What followed was a setup anyone familiar with infidelity scandals would recognize. The witness slammed down the bill on the dinner table. The rich guy panicked and coughed up several million won in cash. But that wasn't enough. The witness made him hand over his phone, used it to apply for a loan, and just like that, 15 million won landed in their hands. Their next target? A corporate chairman from a major conglomerate. Yujia, dressed in alluring black stockings, seduced him effortlessly. The next day, the witness paid the chairman a visit, showing him crystal-clear photos of the affair. "Chairman, you wouldn't want your wife to find out, would you?" 50 million won. Deposited instantly. Then Yujie set her sights on their third target, Sang-hun, a traditional medicine clinic director. As she was busy flirting with him, Brother Long, newly released from prison, called the witness. Ah-young promised Long 150 million if he could stage a fatal car accident. The problem? Long was so broke he didn't even own a bicycle, so he asked the witness to lend him a car. They'd split the reward 50-50. The witness figured, it's just stepping on the gas. But the Hyundai he drove wasn't exactly a high-performance machine. It took multiple tries to hit Uncle Dong. And even then, the guy just wouldn't die. Meanwhile, Mayun, a female church friend of Uncle Dong, had come to deliver a birthday cake and saw the whole thing unfold. She turned and ran. Long chased her down familiar paths. Meanwhile, the two men hurriedly shoved Uncle Dong into the back seat. If Mayun called the police, it'd be too late. On the road, Long finally suffocated Uncle Dong. They now had a body. Time to find somewhere to dump it. Back at the inn, Sang-hun had just finished a 3-minute battle with Yujie. According to the script, this was when the witness should burst into the room, posing as her furious husband, demanding compensation for emotional distress. Yujie was frantic. If he doesn't show, I've seduced this guy for nothing. But the witness, staring at the photos, suddenly had a more lucrative idea. A perfect plan. After sending Long off on his mission, the witness told Yujie, "When Sang-hun wakes up, tell him your best friend's dad died. You have to rush back to the city for the funeral, but make sure he's the one who drives you, while drunk. Feed him that shrimp dish laced with alcohol. He'll eat it for sure." Sure enough, Sang-hun, already tipsy, started up his BMW X5 and drove down a dark mountain road. The witness and Long climbed up onto the nearby pedestrian overpass. They placed Uncle Dong on the guardrail of a pedestrian overpass. What followed was predictable. They had done this before. That night, back in the mountains of Chwak, when they buried the body, a stray dog had been lurking nearby. The very next day, a live streamer happened to be filming on the same mountain. When they noticed the dog digging around, they went in for a closer look, only to see a human face protruding from the soil. Horrified, they dropped their brand new GoPro and fled the scene. Ironically, it was Uncle Dong's own son, Ah-young, who made this twisted burial possible. This guy had never held a proper job, but he had big dreams. He blew a fortune on crypto investments, fantasizing about overnight wealth, Lamborghinis, and flashy diamond chains. But when Trump introduced new tariffs, the markets collapsed. Instead of profits, Ah-young ended up losing 120 million won. To stay afloat, he turned to a ruthless loan shark known as Brother Bear. When Ah-young begged for a 2-day grace period, Brother Bear didn't flinch. He was the kind of guy who'd kill a cop without a second thought. He found himself strapped to a butcher's slab in a meat processing plant. Nearby, a masked man was casually cutting open another victim. This was Brother Bear's trademark move, killing the chicken to scare the monkey. He forced Ah-young to unlock his phone and set a 1-month countdown timer. With that, he tossed Ah-young like garbage by the roadside. Bleeding and limping, Ah-young dragged himself home. The following day, Ah-young returned to his job at the logistics company. There, he witnessed a Korean-Chinese worker being fired by their boss. That worker turned out to be Brother Long, the same ex-con from earlier. Long hadn't changed. He immediately punched the boss to the ground. During lunch, Ah-young secretly checked Long's ID and did a quick online search. While Ah-young was still processing this, he received unexpected news. His father, Uncle Dong, had just been in a car accident, but when he arrived at the hospital, it was clear the injuries were only superficial. Ah-young thought bitterly, this old geezer is tough as nails. While they argued, a sickly older woman walked in, someone claiming to be his father's church friend. Ah-young sneered. Later that night, Ah-young returned to his father's room to fetch some clothes, but forgot the door code. The old man scolded him, "I told you to bring clothes, not break in." Ah-young ignored him, rummaged around, and as he gathered the clothing, he discovered something entirely unexpected. In his father's room, Ah-young found more than just a change of clothes. The first surprise was a vintage gold Rolex his father had cherished for years. The second was a drawer stuffed with cash. But the third discovery was the most shocking. A life insurance policy worth a staggering 500 million. Ah-young's mind immediately twisted. If Dad were to die suddenly, not only could he pay off his debt to the Koreans, but he'd never have to worry about money again. As these thoughts brewed, Ah-young wandered into a narrow alley and was jumped by 3 thugs. One of them struck him down with a baton, and they began tearing at him, their eyes fixed on the Rolex. Ah-young fought back desperately. After a messy struggle, the muggers gave up and ran off. He woke up at the police station, battered. His father came by, deeply concerned, urging the police to catch the attackers. But Ah-young, now completely consumed by his plan, only heard one sentence that mattered. There were no surveillance cameras in that alley. In just a few minutes, Ah-young had mentally constructed the perfect murder. His first stop was a garbage dump known to be a hangout for struggling Korean Chinese. There, he found Brother Long, who was clearly in need of cash. "You kill people?" he asked twice, straight to the point. Then he told Long about the insurance payout, 2 billion won, and offered 30% as a reward for the job. To ensure loyalty, Ah-young handed Long a recording of their entire conversation. Now they were accomplices, and neither could rat the other out. The next morning, Ah-young went to a prison hospital for a massage. Long secretly followed and confronted him, mocking, 500 million? He compared him to a second-hand car dealer, shameless and slick. Called out, Ah-young had no choice but to renegotiate the price, raising Long's cut to 1.5 billion. On the agreed night of the murder, Ah-young needed an airtight alibi. He took his co-workers out for barbecue, talking loudly, stuffing them with food, and suggesting another round afterward. But one of the guys was tightly controlled by his wife and refused. With no choice, Ah-young headed out alone to a karaoke lounge, arranging for some hostesses to play along. But Ah-young wasn't done faking his innocence. He made his way to a 24-hour burger joint and parked himself in front of a power outlet. He deliberately coughed twice to leave an impression on the cashier, then idly scrolled through his favorite action movie breakdown channel. He even liked, bookmarked, and shared the video. Meanwhile, Brother Long was already moving. It wasn't until the next morning, after Ah-young had finally left the burger place and sat down to eat lunch, that the police called. They told him to come and identify a body. In the bathroom stall, Ah-young crouched down on the toilet and practiced crying. After practicing his tears and feeling somewhat confident in his performance, Ah-young arrived at the morgue, ready to put on the show of a lifetime. His sobbing was so dramatic it could rival an award-winning actor. The officer in charge of the case was moved to tears himself, muttering that it was rare to see such a devoted son in South Korea these days. Gripped by sympathy, the officer confided in Ah-young, revealing a crucial detail. A former female classmate, Mei, had witnessed the incident. She saw the driver not only hit the victim but also reverse over him and check for breathing afterward. Hearing this, Ah-young broke into real tears, this time not from performance, but genuine panic. Still unwilling to accept defeat, he pressed the officer further. Even with a witness, couldn't it still be considered an accident? But the officer shook his head and explained. If his father had died like Edu, lying under the car, then maybe. The problem was, they had just received a report that the old man's body was discovered in a shallow grave on Mount Chuyue. Panic surged through Ah-young. Shortly after, a new investigator named Oi joined the case. He was thorough and noticed that Ah-young was the primary beneficiary of the insurance policy, making him the top suspect. Oi began by interviewing the 2 hostesses, then headed to the burger joint where Ah-young had spent the night. The cashier remembered him clearly and instantly identified him from a photo, even commenting how weird it was that someone would go out of their way to be noticed. To Oi, this screamed of a deliberately staged alibi. Meanwhile, Ah-young, anxious to cash in the 500 million insurance payout, rushed to the insurance company. But the moment he walked into the manager's office, he froze. Behind the desk sat the same man, his father's hit-and-run driver. Keeping a cold, professional demeanor, the manager used every bureaucratic excuse in the book to deny the claim. Ah-young, usually so brash, was completely helpless in front of this corporate shark. All he could do was grovel and beg. And things were only getting worse. With just 16 days left before his debt came due, Ah-young couldn't even afford the burial costs. But that wasn't the worst of it. Brother Long showed up at the funeral home, demanding his payment for the murder. When Ah-young hesitated, Long snapped, threatening him violently. Their argument didn't go unnoticed. Detective Ah-wei had tailed Ah-young there and saw the whole scene unfold. He began to piece things together. Driven by rookie zeal, Ah-wei decided to confront the suspects directly. He tracked Long to his hideout alone, completely unarmed. Long, sensing something was off, casually stopped Ah-wei under the pretense of borrowing a lighter. When Ah-wei stammered through a poorly made-up excuse for being there, Long struck. With a swift move, he threw a plastic bag over Ah-wei's head and suffocated him. 1 minute later, Ah-wei was dead. Long was startled when he realized the murder was caught clearly on surveillance cameras. There was no way to escape. He sent Ah-young a final ultimatum: gather 150 million tomorrow, or they die together. Ah-young pretended to agree, setting a meeting for the next night in the parking lot, but then pulled out a hammer, ready for a last-ditch fight. Longji confidently told Lao Piao they would get the insurance money soon. Dividing tasks, Longji would collect the cash while Lao Piao kept watch. Meanwhile, Ah-young foolishly prepared an ambush. He hid a hammer in the car and set a 1-minute countdown timer to create a distraction for a surprise attack. When Longji got into the car, Ah-young lied smoothly, telling him the money was ready and that he would take him home to fetch it. Following behind in a stolen BMW X5, Lao Piao had no idea that Korean police had just found Ah-wei strangled, along with the bodies of Longji's 2 other accomplices, 3 dead in total. Police were now watching surveillance, locking down roads, and stopping cars. Longji knew he was trapped. Then, they got a tip that police were chasing Lao Piao instead, as he fled into the forest, drawing massive police attention. Taking advantage of the chaos, Ah-young escaped, parking at an abandoned building. He followed his plan, started the countdown, took out a big bag, only for Longji to find it full of worthless paper. Ah-young's failure was clear. He couldn't kill Longji and nearly got killed himself. Minutes later, a drained Lao Piao arrived, and Longji tied up Ah-young while reassuring Lao Piao they'd get the money and escape to China safely. Lao Piao was skeptical, fearing harsher punishment in China. Suddenly, Lao Piao decided to swap identities with Ah-young to use him as a decoy. With a swift move, Lao Piao used glass shards to silently kill Longji, then changed clothes and watches with Ah-young. When Ah-young woke up, confused, he saw Lao Piao wearing his clothes and asked who he was. Lao Piao smiled, put glasses on Ah-young and said, "You may not recognize me now, but after I add the gasoline, you'll be a familiar face." Ah-young was burned to ashes, and Lao Piao took over Ah-young's identity. His plans had outsmarted fate. Lao Piao woke up pinned under wooden boards, with flames falling around him, burning painfully. Just as he was about to lose consciousness, a sudden blow from above knocked him out. Minutes later, the police arrived at the fire scene. After firefighters put out the flames, only charred bodies remained, completely unrecognizable except for one survivor who appeared to be Ah-young by ID. Mistakenly, police thought Lao Piao was Ah-young and rushed him to the hospital. When Yen Mei heard the name Ah-young, her expression changed dramatically. 20 years earlier, Ah-young had brutally raped Yen Mei, leaving her with deep psychological scars. The story then flashes back to 2005, when Yen Mei, then 18 and a high school student, was introduced to a charming young man by her friend Yujia. They chatted until night, and on the snowy walk home, he took her hand, but instead of love, she was ambushed by masked thugs. Her protector, a senior student, was beaten unconscious. Yen Mei was taken to an abandoned warehouse, where another thug kept watch over her. Despite her kind nature, she was forced into unspeakable acts to survive. Police later arrested the criminals based on her description, but Yen Mei insisted her senior was also a victim. The police laughed, blaming Ah-young as the mastermind behind the rape. Though Ah-young enjoyed only a few minutes of pleasure, the pain inflicted on Yen Mei lasted 20 years. She suffered nightmares daily but remained kind-hearted and became a compassionate doctor. Even when patients vented their anger physically, she remained patient. One night, her senior came to the emergency room with severe burns. Yen Mei, treating the patient, heard him mention Ayong's name and felt a surge of anxiety. Was fate cruelly bringing her tormentor to her doorstep? Worried that Ayong might still be smart enough to hide his tracks, Yen Mei sought help from a detective agency run by a retired cop, an old friend. She asked the agency head to investigate Ayong's true identity, and he agreed, though it would take a few days. Because the detective agency's chief was busy with another case, tracking a pregnant woman who suspected her husband Lao Li of cheating, the investigation on Ayong's identity was delayed. The chief's two skilled assistants had been tailing Lao Li for days, even pretending to be passers-by and chatting with him. They followed Lao Li to an abandoned building and captured the entire process of Lao Li's death on camera. Yen Mei had just left the scene when the assistants returned, bringing both good and bad news. The good news, Lao Li was indeed cheating. The bad news, Lao Li was also being cheated on and ended up getting killed in the process. After closing that case, the chief contacted his friend Lao Jiang, a police officer and his apprentice, to check on Ayong. For Lao Jiang, looking up a person was easy, and the next day, the chief got a report. He called Yen Mei to update her on the 3 criminals from 20 years ago. One had gone to prison but committed suicide. Another died from a drug overdose causing blood vessel rupture. Only Ayong remained alive, badly burned a few days ago but survived. Ayong was reportedly in the same hospital, Ward 402, right near Yen Mei. Yen Mei's mind went wild. Her fiancé was also in the same ward, looking healthy but clearly unaware of the danger. She was furious, wishing she could take a scalpel and end Ayong's life immediately. However, before she could act on her feelings, Lao Jiang came to take her statement, breaking her out of her fantasy. He reported that someone had died in the hospital after a fight, someone who had been swapped out. The details were unclear, causing confusion and tension. Even though Lao Piao, posing as Ayong, claimed to be Ayong, Lao Jiang insisted on fingerprint confirmation. But Lao Piao's fingers were so badly burned that they looked like chicken claws, impossible to read. So, the police had to wait 2 days for DNA tests. After the police left, fearing his identity might be exposed, Lao Piao took some sedatives and arranged to leave the hospital early. Yen Mei panicked. If Ayong was released, finding him again would be near impossible. At the moment Lao Piao tried to leave via the elevator, Yen Mei blocked the closing steel doors. Lao Piao, surprised, didn't recognize her but couldn't deny it either. After all, he was pretending to be Ayong now. After some awkward hesitation, Lao Piao smiled slyly and teased Yen Mei. Both were caught in an information gap. Lao Piao, the man impersonating Ayong, misunderstood her intense focus as an ex-girlfriend's drama, even joking, "Exes are such a pain." But to Yen Mei, this only confirmed he was the real Ayong. A dog can't stop eating shit. Watching Lao Piao drive away in a taxi, Yen Mei silently vowed, "I'm going to kill him." Her strange behavior caught her fiancé's attention, who asked what was going on. She cryptically replied, "Life? When someone wrongs you, don't you want to kill them?" This cryptic answer left her fiancé suspicious. Meanwhile, Lao Piao was annoyed by Yen Mei's repeated appearances. Everyone else got nothing, but he nearly got barbecued in the fire. He returned to Ayong's disgusting apartment, which smelled as bad as Ayong's character. He downed sedatives with expensive wine and tried to study Ayong's ID information to perfect his impersonation. At the same time, Yen Mei resolved to begin her revenge. She opened a pharmacy safe, took out a full bottle of poison, and called the detective agency chief to set up her murder plan. Suddenly, the insurance company called Lao Piao with good news. Ayong's father, Uncle Dong, had a 500 million insurance payout. Lao Piao was thrilled until he found out Uncle Dong had donated all the money to a church woman named Aunt May. Enraged, he stormed out to confront her. On the way out, he got bumped into and soaked in coffee, an intentional distraction staged by the detective chief, who secretly swapped Lao Piao's medicine with the poison bottle Yen Mei had prepared. Unaware of the switch, Lao Piao barged into the church, demanding Aunt May return the money. She refused and played a voice recording of Uncle Dong, who had clearly said he didn't trust his son and left the money to charity, confirming he had a sound mind before death. Lao Piao, now both broke and exposed, stormed off. Outside, Yen Mei appeared again, relentlessly following him. Lao Piao shouted, "I'm not a Yong. The Yong you want is already dead." But Yen Mei didn't believe him. He had just tried to claim Yong's father's insurance. Just as Lao Piao was about to explain everything, suddenly Yen Mei burst out, "You're about to lose it." With a crazed shout, he collapsed onto the pile of trash. Yen Mei pulled out a wind-powered scalpel, but just at that moment, her fiancé appeared. It turned out he had been secretly investigating Yong's criminal history and had come specifically to stop Yen Mei. Sure, killing a scumbag like that might feel good for a second, but throwing away your whole life for it? Not worth it. Touched by his love, Yen Mei burst into tears and dropped the scalpel. On their way home, the fiancé received a phone call. His tone immediately changed. Yen Mei asked him what happened. He explained that a relative back home had fallen ill and needed his help for treatment. Meanwhile, Lao Piao, he returned to the apartment and opened the bottle of painkillers, only to notice something was off about the color of the pills. After carefully comparing them, it finally hit him. The seductive agency boss had pretended to be a passerby and, while wiping off spilled coffee, had switched out his medication. Just as he was about to curse out loud, Detective Lao called. He said there was one more detail about the case that needed clarification and that he'd be downstairs in just a few minutes. But in reality, Detective Lao had already noticed a major flaw in his statement through analysis of the crime scene photos. Lao Piao had said he was tied to a chair and burned, yet when firefighters rescued him, there was no chair under him, only another charred corpse. After hanging up, he quickly found Yong's passport and prepared to flee that night. While searching, his eyes fell on a faded poster of a girl, triggering his memories. He had claimed he didn't know Yen Mei, but that wasn't entirely true. 20 years ago, Yu Jie had asked her to deal with Yen Mei, and he had casually refused, saying he didn't know Yen Mei. That wasn't the full truth. They were supposed to switch hands, exchange roles, but in the end, Yong replaced him in the job and ended up raping Yen Mei. After all the twists and turns, Lao Piao realized he was now paying Yong's debt. Thinking this, he panicked and rushed to the bus stop to wait for the airport shuttle. At that moment, Yong's phone buzzed with a reminder, "Time to repay your debt." Lao Piao laughed bitterly and shut off the phone, only to see a black Mercedes van screech to a halt right in front of him. Not long after, the fiancé, who had been waiting by the roadside for a while, was invited into the same van. The vehicle stopped at a meat processing plant. Inside, the fiancé calmly removed his suit jacket and changed clothes. The moment the crime boss walked onto the scene, everything became clear. The crime boss, the man who had once lent money to Yong for crypto speculation, had long been collaborating with an underground organ harvesting surgeon. It was Yen Mei's fiancé. He had already made enough money to buy a house and get married. After this one last job, he planned to retire for good. But the crime boss hated people who failed to repay borrowed money on time. So he made a demand: heart, liver, spleen, lungs, kidneys, take them all. When the fiancé discovered that the man tied to the operating table was covered in burns, his blood surged. He hadn't expected it to be Yong, delivered straight to him. He removed his mask. Lao Piao was overjoyed. But it's too late, he had to pay for his crimes. The next day, early in the morning, the fiancé rushed back to the hospital. He told Yen Mei that everything back home had been taken care of. In the outpatient lobby, she once again ran into the agency boss. The boss originally intended to hand over the latest investigation report. But after hearing Yen Mei say she didn't need it, the boss resolutely tore it up. Whether Lao Piao was Yong or not no longer mattered. Revealing the truth would only bring Yen Mei more pain. The fiancé opened the gift bag from the crime boss. The thing inside was the same Rolex watch Yong once proudly wore. From the very beginning of episode 1 to the very end of the final episode, the gold watch had come full circle. All the villains straight to hell. See you in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Please like and drop a heart if you love the series.